with a broken heart. I guess that sometimes good things fall apart. Overthinking's got me drinking, messing with my head. Tell me what you hate about me. Whatever it is, I'm sorry. I know I can be dramatic. Everybody say we got it. Coming to terms with a broken heart. I guess that sometimes good things fall apart.
We're 1,000 miles from comfort. We have traveled land and sea. But as long as you are with me, there's no place I'd rather be. I would away forever, exalted in the sea, as long as I am with you.
Okay, welcome. I hope everyone's having a good night right now. Welcome to our first iOS workshop, RUMAT's first iOS workshop. My name is Sujit, and I'm the president of RUMAT this year. And tonight, we'll be building a calculator app, the one you see on your iPhones, right? I hope you all are excited, and let's just get into it because we only have 2 hours. Building an app in 2 hours is actually like a little tough. It's a pretty nice constraint, but I think we can do it, and hopefully you guys will feel a lot more confident by the end of this session. So I just want to talk to you about like what's going to be covered. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to open up Xcode. We're going to build a UI of our calculators. Then we're going to be writing some Swift code. If you guys don't know what Swift is, it's a language. It's another programming language, just like Java or C. And we're going to use that code that we write, and we're going to connect it to our storyboard. After that, we will be customizing our screens, like adding corner radius and maybe changing up the button layout a little bit so it looks a lot more similar to how it looks on the iPhone. We'll also have some breaks in between, 5-minute breaks after every session, every stage. So you guys don't get tired, and it's like, just we can recap. We'll also have questions in those 5-minute breaks. And at the end, I just want you guys all to fill out the survey. It just helps us as a group, as a club, to improve on these workshops, understand the pacing. We're all students here, so we're just trying to learn. So filling this out would really help us at the end. If you guys want to turn on your cameras, that's really, if you guys are comfortable with that, you guys can go ahead. It just makes the session a little bit more collaborative, so we can like talk a little bit. But so we'll just like really dive into it, and hopefully you guys feel a lot better and you feel a lot more confident with Xcode if you guys have opened it before. So okay, let's get started. And this session will be recorded on YouTube. It'll be recorded and we'll be uploading it to YouTube. And if you don't know our YouTube channel, you can find it by going to our website, and the link should be right underneath the like first few buttons. All right, any questions just to right before we start?
I have a question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So my Xcode didn't download. I kept it overnight, but there was some space issues. So what do you recommend doing? Do you want me to like still stay here and like look how we do it, or should I just come back or should look at the recording?
For sure, you can. I would recommend staying here because sometimes it's very difficult to follow along and code at the same time. So like maybe this time around, you can just like uh, maybe write some notes down, just like absorb the content, and then once we upload it on YouTube, you can just follow along. And like it's really important to understand what your learning style is in the beginning. I know me personally, I like to watch videos, watch tutorials, and then do them on my own. But some people, they like to do the tutorials at the same time and they understand. So like this is a really good opportunity to just understand your learning style. So I would recommend that you would stay.
Okay, thank you.
And I think you would just have to clear up some space on your computer. Xcode is like 10 gigabytes. So you would just have to clear up some space, delete some files that are not necessary. I know GarageBand is like 10 gigabytes and like nobody uses that. So just go ahead and delete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same issue. It took me at least 45 gigabytes of free disk storage to finally install.
Yeah.
You said 45?
Yeah, it took me about 45 for it to go through.
I think it just needs some extra space. It's the file itself is like 10 gigabytes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and it'd be helpful if you guys just kept yourself muted for until the break, because like when we upload the recording, it's just gonna be easier for you guys to like watch in a flow instead of having like breaks of questions. So we'll have a 5-minute break where we can ask questions, we can regroup after every stage, and after now then you can ask questions. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to just take in what we're looking at here. Can you guys see my screen? All right. You guys can see Xcode, right? Or oh wait, you can just yeah. Okay, thanks. I guess being muted didn't help, but like for now, that's just one confirmation that I needed. Okay, just take it in what we're looking at here. So there's like a lot of text for me, at least. For you guys, there shouldn't be that much text, but for me, I guess there is a lot of text because I've been doing a lot of iOS projects. So on the right-hand side, you see your projects, and Xcode is just like being helpful here. It's just having a shortcut to the projects on your computer. So instead of like finding them through Finder, it just leads, you have a shortcut here. You also have 3 options here. One is to create a project, one is to clone an existing project, and one is to open a project or file. So you would probably not want to like clone anything right now because you first don't have any projects. If you want to open a project, that's something you would want to do if Xcode doesn't display your project up here. So that's when you would click open a project. We'll look at that towards the very end. And then the first one is create a new project. And that's what we'll be doing right now. And that will create our base project. So let's click on that. And now we're given this another window that provides us with options. So the first option is app. Second is document app, game, augmented reality, sticker pack app, iMessage. So this is really this is like the very basic app structure, and the rest are just like they're kind of like small packages, so like small like templates. So but this is like from scratch. And I just want to let you guys know, Apple has changed this like 2 days ago. They re-updated and re-changed all of Xcode, a lot of Xcode 2 days ago. They do that every year. I don't know why they have to make such dramatic changes every year. I don't understand their mentality. I think they just want to create maybe a more level playing field for everyone. So everyone has to like constantly relearn stuff. But if you guys ever watch tutorials online from like before today to like 2012, initially they'll tell you to make a single view app, and that is the exact same thing as the app you see right here. And you also have the option to look at different interfaces. So if you want to make different types of, for different platforms, you have macOS, watchOS, tvOS. Today, we'll focus on iPhone. You don't have to focus on frameworks and libraries right now, not important. The only thing you want to look at is app, make sure that's selected, and press next. So now it's going to be asking us a couple questions. And this window can seem pretty intimidating if you're new to app development, but eventually you'll get used to it. It'll take a couple months and you'll understand what all of these mean. So the first thing is asking us for the name of our project. Today we'll call it Calculator Workshop. Okay. Next, it's going to ask me for a personal team or team. I think if you're signed into your computer, this option, your name should be an available option. Otherwise, I think none would be fine. You can just like leave it as none. Organization identifier is basically something Apple can use to identify your organization on the App Store. Bundle identifier is something Apple can use to identify your app on the App Store. So the first one is you as an individual. The second is your app. Next, we have two options. This is a very critical feature right here. So we have two options, Storyboard and SwiftUI. SwiftUI is the new interface protocol that Apple has designed that came out last year. So nowadays you'll be seeing like a lot of like startups, like people who are starting up right now, they'll be using SwiftUI. And this is probably the best option if you're trying to build an app right now. So, but today we'll be using Storyboard. And the reason we'll be using Storyboard is because this is the really trusted interface builder, like the really trusted interface protocol. And if you go to work at any company right now, they will be using Storyboard and not SwiftUI. So SwiftUI is meant for people trying to build apps from scratch and trying to ship it to an app store. Storyboard is something that you can also do the same thing with it, but it's just been more tested over time. It's very old. And as you become a software developer, you'll see it takes a lot of time for companies to adapt to new interface protocols. That's something you'll learn as you get past your degree. Lifecycle, don't worry about that. Language, you have two options again here, Objective-C and Swift. So Swift was introduced in 2015, and it's been like the de facto language of iOS programming since then. And Objective-C was used before, since like 2007 to 2015. And Objective-C is actually used very commonly in all Apple products. It's like the main language that they use at Apple. But now for iOS programs, they are using Swift. And like even now, you still see some programs, some apps at companies still using Objective-C. I think, can't remember the company. I was like applying to a company a couple of days ago, and they were still using Objective-C. So that's been 5 years. So it takes a long time for people to adapt to different software. So yeah, two options here. So core data and test. Core data is for data persistence, and we're not going to be using that. We're not going to be covering that right now. Maybe in the accelerator we'll be seeing that, or at the very end of the semester when we try to build a reminders app. And then test is basically automated tests that you can use to test your app. We also won't be using that. It's really meant for big scale apps, not single screen apps or like 2-screen apps, really big apps with lots of different options for the user. Okay, so now press next. And then it's going to ask you where you want to create your project on the folder. I set up this folder called iOS Workshops. It's in like a bunch of, I guess maybe you can like, if you see it to give you like the landscape, it's in this folder called Coding, iOS Projects, iOS Workshops. It can be anywhere on your computer. It can be on your desktop. I've done that before. a quick app, just one on my desktop. And once you do that, make sure it's all good. It's being saved to a location that you want, that you'll remember later, and you can press create. Okay, so now our app is actually a functional app now. So now it actually, like, if we press run, it'll run, but don't press run yet. We have nothing, we've coded nothing so far. So I just want to give you the lay of the land now. I want to show you what Xcode is, what is so special here. So we have a bunch of different, like if you've coded before, this probably won't look familiar as well. If you've used something like Eclipse, it might look a little familiar, but if you just, this is like the first week or first 2 weeks that you've been introduced to programming, it can be quite intimidating. So let me just like walk through the different panels that we have here. So on the left side, pretty simple actually. The left side is just our project structure. So all the files. So these are the default files that come with every single app, and that allows you to like build the app when you press the run button. Then you have a bunch of these like tabs. So I guess like an important tab right now would be like the search. So you can search for a specific code, a specific method in your code, or like a specific phrase. If you have like lots of files, this triangle caution mark is like any errors that you might have in your code. And this tag is also the breakpoint navigator. So that is pretty useful if you're running a pretty big project and you're using breakpoints. That's something you'll be seeing maybe in like CompArc, like a lot later. We won't be using breakpoints today. There's no need. Okay, so next I want you guys to press on main.storyboard. So now you can see like there's some iPod, well, it's an iPhone. It's an iPhone screen. It's right here. This is what we'll be using to create our first app. But before we get there, I want to talk about this panel. If you guys don't have it open, you can open it and close it like this. Same with this panel. Just if you're running on a small MacBook, you can create some space. There's also, should be another panel down here, but I think that now only shows up if you run some code. But these are the two main panels, I guess. So this is called the inspectors panel. So basically, I think the best way to really get started is to, and learn about the inspectors panel, is to drag in a UI element to our screen. And the way we're going to drag a UI element to our screen is we're going to click on this plus sign. And this plus sign is the library, the UI library for the UI kit elements. And when you click on it, something should show up. I had two monitors here, so it popped up here, so I just dragged it over. You have a bunch of UI elements that you probably see on your phones every day. So we all see buttons on our phones, like the Instagram like button. You see labels like captions. We see text fields like search bars. We see switch buttons to like turn on, turn off dark mode or stuff like that. We have activity indicator views for like loading. These stuff is not really used. And then we have some stuff that's not really seen on screen. Stack views. And these basically contain. So these include rows. They contain UI elements. So when you have like a lot of UI elements, you can like contain them in stack views or table views. Then you have image views, which are like, so like Instagram, right? Add image view, add a label, that's Instagram, right? And just put that in a table view, which is to put it in a list. And then that's Instagram right there. Pickers, some effects, and like eventually things start getting a bit more like abstract and like things you probably won't see very often, but you might, right? And then like down here, the yellow stuff. The yellow stuff is basically screens that you can like drag out. Okay, but right now we're only concerned with making a button. So let's drag a single button You can click on it. You can say, you can read the description, and you can drag it out and just drag it to the middle of the screen. It's okay if it doesn't snap. Just drag it, make sure it's on the screen. Okay. Okay, now I want to talk about the inspectors panel. Now it'll make a lot more sense. Can you guys see your faces over here? I'm just curious. Alay, could you let me know?
No, we can't see that.
Okay, you guys can't. So you guys see my folders here?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, interesting. I will just put that there. Okay. So if we click on our button, so like now we have a hierarchy of our files, and then now we have a hierarchy of the UI elements. And then you can see like, okay, we have the scene. Okay, forget about that. We have the view controller, which is the entire like screen. We have the view, which is just the content of the screen. We have the safe area, which is the space excluding the notch and the home button thingy down there. And then we have our button underneath. So our button and the safe area, they're kind of on the same level, right, based on the indentation. So we can look at different attributes of our button by clicking through these inspectors. So we'll just focus on the last 4 today. These first 3 are not very important, so let's focus on the last 4. So the first thing we're going to look at is the identity inspector. So this stuff doesn't really make a lot of sense, but basically here, what's happening is you're defining what type of object this is. So here, for example, I'm clicking on the button, it tells me it's a UI button. If I click on like the view, it's telling me it's a UI view. So this identity is telling me what the object is. Next, we have the attributes inspector. So this, it used to be like 2 days ago, instead of the sliders, they had, it was a height scale like that you see at the doctors. So now it's just like a bunch of like attributes. So you have view, you have control, you have button. So they're like things like the title, like, so suppose we can look at our button and we can change the name. Let's change it to, so we're building a calculator app, right? So let's change it to C for clear, or like A/C, right? And that should change. See, like we've changed the name. So now this disappeared because now I'm no longer clicking on the button, I'm clicking on the view. So if I click back on the button, everything will show up again. So now you can look at all these features. We have a lot of features here. But right now, what I'm focused on particularly is the background color. So like, I want to change this first. So let's change this to, I think, this color. So I don't know if you guys have those colors already, like set out, but if you don't have them, I just like, you can scroll down and you can like just find them down here. So let's change it to light gray, right? So that kind of looks like a calculator button, kind of. Okay, but we're moving on. Let's like maybe like go to the next one. So the next one is called the size inspector. This used to be a ruler, which I thought was a much better like analogy, but now it's a right triangle protractor kind of thing. So what shows up here is anything that's relevant to the size of our object or of our view or its placement. So as a view, every single view on the screen needs its X value, its Y value, its width, and its height to be defined. Or if they're not defined explicitly, they have to be able to be derived. Okay, so for example, right now, you see you guys probably have a yellow arrow right here. If you click on that, it says, we drag it out a little bit. Okay, maybe it doesn't. But like what it says is views without any layout constraints. So it's saying constraints are basically, you have to, like I said, you need an X constraint, a Y constraint, a height constraint, and a width constraint, okay? So we have to define that first. And anything we do regarding the constraints or its dimensions will show up here. And let's just like experiment right now. So the first thing I want to do is set up a constraint. Okay, so down here, hopefully you guys can see, you have like some buttons. There's like a TIE fighter looking, oh, it used to look like a TIE fighter. Now it just looks like a square. It used to look like a TIE fighter before, but now it's like a square with like arrows. So what I want to do is click on this, and before we set up our constraint, I just want to talk to you why this exists. So what's the point of constraints? Why can't I just put things wherever I want, let Apple load it, and why can't I ship on the App Store? So the reason is Apple not only has an iPhone 11, they have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. They don't just have that, they have an iPhone 8 that's still used. Tomorrow or day after tomorrow, there'll be like an iPhone 12. There's gonna be like so many iPhones out here. So like you have so many devices that you have to account for. And your app has to work on all of them for it to ship on the App Store. Otherwise, they won't accept it. You can't be partial to one phone. It has to, your UI has to be dynamic, and it has to work on all phones. And constraints allow our UI to be dynamic. And the way, what we're going to do here first is set up our first constraint. Constraints can be a very complicated concept to understand. And that's why Apple, technically, they're trying to like, it's very difficult and most people don't do it right. So Apple is now trying to like, with Swift UI, which is the new interface protocol, they're trying to take that power away from us. They don't want us to set up the constraints ourselves because they don't trust us. So the first thing we want to do is set up a left constraint. How do I know my constraint's going to be active? Is because the red bar up here should turn on versus the other ones which are off. So we're gonna set it to just 20 for now, and you'll see what happens. See, now it's like constrained to the left part, right? And now if we look at our button again, something changed here, something updated. Now there's a horizontal constraint. And we can change this if we want. We can edit this. We can change the constant to 25 if we want, right? Pushes it a little further out. The next thing we want to do is notice that our constraint is, there are like red lines here. I don't know if you can see them, but if you look down, there are red lines. And this is our app, this is Xcode telling us, hey, this guy, he has a X value defined. So his X value is 20 from the left, but he doesn't have a Y value defined. So what we have to do is we have to define the Y value by choosing this. So there are many ways you can go about choosing a Y value. You can center it from the bottom, we can center it from the top, but I like, initially, you wanna center things in the center initially, and then build your view from that. And you'll see how it beautifully like comes together eventually. So now, no issues, all good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make this button bigger, right? I don't know if you guys know how a calculator looks like. Buttons are not this small. So I'll just search it up and show you. Calculator. Let's see how it looks like. So we have like what we're aiming for. Okay, I think this is pretty good. So this is what we're kind of aiming for, right? This is what we're aiming for. This does not look like that, right? So what we want to do is we want to first have our button selected, make sure it's selected, and then we want to click on the square, and then we want to set a width to 85. Okay, so I think that's like a good width. Don't worry about the circles, like the radius part. We'll see that at the very end. Okay, so now the next thing you want to do is you want to set the aspect ratio, right? So now we have an aspect ratio to 17:6. As you might wonder, like, how do you change this? So the way you change it is you go back to your triangle, and then you go all the way down here, and you look at your constraint, you press edit, so you can edit constraints, and you want to set this to 1 by 1. Okay, now you have that. So just for practice, let's try and do it again. Let's make our second button, which will be the plus or like the plus or minus 1. So the multiply by -1, that button will do. So you guys can maybe go at your own pace if you guys remember. I'll just do it again. So what I'll do here is I'll also introduce some new tricks this time. So I'm gonna first change the color. That's the first thing I did last time. So change the color background to light gray. So I have recently used colors, but if you guys don't have that, it's light gray down here. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to set this maybe like 20 to the left, right? But before I set it, I want to make sure that it's relative to my first button, not the safe area, not the view. I want it to be 20 away from my first button. And when you click that, it might change, but just change it again and you should be fine. So add the constraint. Now it's giving me an error. Oh, I don't have my my x value, my y value defined. So to do that, what we're gonna do instead of setting it to 100, right? Setting it to the middle of the screen. We're going to make it do its very, actually guys, wait. I will do something and I'll show you like why it's not supposed to be done this way. So I'll show you what we did last time. We did this, we set it horizontally in the container. And suppose now we're working at a big tech company and imagine we set up all our buttons. And now our manager comes to us and says like, hey, I wanna change the height. I wanna make this button, all the buttons a little higher. So what we have to do then, we have to go to our triangle, we have to go to our, our vertical center, and we have to change the constant here. So a negative value will rise it, and a positive value will set it down. So, and 0 is like, it's like a normal like line graph, a normal graph. So a negative value, or wait, no, it's not. It's like a reversed. So a negative value will get you a bit higher. So suppose we do like, I don't know, let's do like 50, right? Notice how this hasn't changed. It's still centered to this playing field. That's not okay, right? But we would have to do it again and again for every single button. What we want to do is be smart about it. And so I can like delete the change I made just now. So hopefully you guys didn't make that change because I told you not to. But if you guys did, where was that? I changed it to 50. I'll change it back to 0. And this is how we're going to be smart about it. We're going to click on this button and we're going to take this. I don't know if you got, I don't remember when I told you guys to stop following me, but like, just make sure if you have the Y value, delete it for the vertical. And what we're going to do is something pretty fancy. So we're going to hold shift, click on this, hold shift, click on the A, C, and then make sure they're both selected. And then we're going to align their vertical centers. So now if I choose to move this a little higher, I won't do it now because we'll do it later, I guess. I don't know. But like if I choose to move this will move now as well. And now it's supposed to be aligned everything together. They'll all move. So now what I want to do here is I want to increase the size a little bit. So once again, I'll try to do something pretty fancy. So I'll hold shift again, click on this, not this one. So click on the square again, equal widths, right? Now it's good. And then again, what we want to do here is hold this and then go the square, sorry, and press equal heights. Okay, and now we can do something even cooler, right? So there should be, to edit this, we have to change, we can go to the attributes inspector and change it here to plus or minus, or we can just double click the button itself, and that allows us to change to plus or minus. Okay, so now what we want to do now is, like, that's a tiresome process, like getting a button, changing it, making sure the heights are the same. What we can do instead now is we can hold Option, click on this button, hold Option on your computer, and then drag it out. Keep on holding Option. Let go first, and then let go of Option. And that duplicates the button. And then you can change it to the percent sign. And then move to the left a little bit, I guess. And then press hold Option again and repeat. Okay, so now here's another trick on your keyboard. If you hold Option and click the question mark, that'll give you the actual divide sign. Okay, cool. So now you guys can see, like, it kind of looks a little weird. Like, okay, this is like 25 from the left. This is like 20 from that. This is like, I don't know, 10 from that. This is like 5 from that. It looks weird. And it's kind of difficult to, like, align things. Like, it's just a tiresome process. So what you want to do now is introduce something called stacks. And stacks are basically the future of, like, making apps, really. If you, like, start coding, if you start using Swift UI, all you'll be using is stacks, because Apple doesn't trust us to set up our own constraints. So now what I want you guys to do is press the plus sign, and then I want you guys to go find the stack, which is the horizontal stack view, and drag it into your view hierarchy, right? So now it's kind of like floating around here. It has no elements, but we'll add the elements inside by clicking on the divide sign, holding Shift, hold Shift, click all the way up to AC, and then you should drag it inside. So the way you know you're dragging it inside is it should slightly indent the line. And now it squishes everything together and ruins all the progress we just made. But that's okay. So it actually also deletes all the constraints that we just made. So the constraints that we made, kind of useless. But the reason we made them is just to show you guys how constraints work if you're not using a stack. So it will be repeating it again with the stack. So all the constraints were kind of deleted, except for, like, maybe the dimensions, right? I think they're still around, right? The 1x1, 85. So the next thing we want to do is we want to, like, expand it, everything again. So click on stack view, click on the attributes inspector, which is the sliders. Go to distribution and go to fill equally. And now it kind of looks like normal. Okay, and then now I want them to be less squished. So just change the spacing up here. I think change it to 10. I like 10. Maybe. I think, wait, let me see. I think 10 is fine. 10 is fine. Maybe do 15. Yeah, do 15. Hopefully I don't regret that decision. I think 15 looks better. Yeah, just do 15. So now what I want to do is I want to call this, I want to change the name to stack view, because I'm going to make a bunch more stack views. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this, let's call this divides stack view. So the way we do this, and I think they don't have a name attributes here. So what you do is you click on the hierarchy you click once to make it blue. Oops. No. You click once to make it blue, and then you hold and click again. Like the second time you click, you have to hold it, and you click again, and it allows you to change the name. Okay, divide stack view. Now the next thing you want to do is before we make more stack views. No, okay, yeah, let's make more stack views. So the way we do that is like how we duplicate the buttons. We're gonna hold Option, drag, 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 still holding Option, and let go. And one more time. Okay, I realized we have to change something. So what we can do to go back, you just press Control-Z, undo. One thing we have to do is change these buttons, the colors of the buttons, which I just remembered. So I think this button should be 7. So you can just change the numbers yourself. So it'll be 7, 8, double click to change the buttons. And then on the side, it should be, instead of the star, we'll be using X. And then change the value from, change the background from light gray to orange. So you click on the button, you go to the attributes inspector, you go all the way down to view, and you change it to orange, system orange. Same with this one. Up here, change this to orange. And then for these values, 7, 8, and 9, let's reference this again. They're a lot darker than the ones up here. So let's be a little like detail oriented and like change this to dark gray. And sometimes when you want to change a common element amongst these rows, you can do like the shift trick. Hold, click on this, like hold shift, click on them all, and I want to change the text. So right now it's, if you go to attributes, button, font, it should be system 15. I want it to be system 35 up here. And then, so system for Apple is usually Helvetica New. So just if you're curious. And then it's a little tricky for the text color. I think you can just change it to white. Okay, yeah. I've been just changing it to tint. I don't know why. But I think tint is when you click it. That's the color that shows up. But I guess we can just leave it blue for now. Do the same thing up here. Hold shift, change it to 35. And then change the text color to white. Okay, so kind of looking like what a calculator looks like. So now, since like the rest is kind of uniform, just hold Option. Oops, wait, what did I do? Okay, wait. Click on this. Click on your divide stack view. Make sure like the multiplication. Actually, wait, change it. Change it to multiplies or times stack view, so you guys don't get confused. Okay, so now you have 2 stack views, divides and multiplies. So then you hold Option on when you're clicking on, you click here, hold Option, drag all the way down. That's 1. So there should be 1 more. And then like 1 small one if you can like squeeze under here. Right? It looks a little weird, but that's okay. Let's change the names. But before we change the names, let's like change the values here. So we have divides X. Under X, we have the minus sign. Under the minus sign, we have the plus sign. Under the plus sign, we have the equal sign. We should have, in terms of numbers, it should be 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, for here. So I'm pressing enter every single time I change the number. So you double click, press 5, then press enter. Okay. So now what you want to do is also like down here, change this to 0. For now, just make this dash dash. Okay, we'll come back to this at the end because technically the 0 should like be the whole length, and this changes to a dot. Okay. Okay, now change the names up here. Sorry if I'm picking up. I think we've done this a couple times. So divides is up here. Times is over here. Next one should be minus. So click once, hold, let go. Minus. The next should be plus. Click, hold, let go. The last one should be equals. Click, hold, let go. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is we want to, since we have a lot of elements again here, you want to throw in another stack view. It's like stack views galore. So we're going to have a vertical stack view. Instead of aligning the buttons horizontally, we want to align the stack views vertically. So we're going to click on vertical stack view. This manages the constraints necessary to create a horizontal or vertical stack of views, blah, 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 blah. Just actually read it if you're like unsure ever. It's really helpful. They put a lot of time to making the documentation user-friendly. It's actually really good documentation, but like for now, click it, drag, just put it out here. Make sure it's not going under another stack view, and it's like the whole bar is showing. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to click here, hold shift, go to divides, and then put it underneath the vertical stack view. It's okay, things have gone to the side, we'll fix it. Click here, first change the name. So click, hold, click, and then we'll highlight operators stack view. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do, so we can open and close it, is nice and clean. So we want to center this vertically now we're going back to constraints, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure we're holding on the operators, we're clicking on the operators stack view, like just click it once, make sure it's highlighted, or it's highlighted here. Then we want to align it in the center. So we want to make an alignment constraint. So in the middle, right, horizontally in the container. So we're setting the X value, okay? And the way we're going to set the Y value is we're going to use the square. The square, we're going to use from the bottom. So from the bottom of the safe area, so make sure safe area is clicked, and change it to 30. Boom. And now what we want to do, I think, is make sure it's clicked here. So don't highlight it, just make sure it's clicked. Go to your attributes inspector and change this to 20. So like increment it to 20. Like, boom. That's basically it, right? That's how it basically looks like. Minus a radius, we'll do that. So one last thing I have to do for later is make sure go back to the square, have the operators stack view selected, go back to the square, and click on the right and the left and just press OK. I need 2 constraints. One last thing I want to do is have a button up here, right? Not a button, sorry, a label up here that basically like keeps on updating. So like the number. So go back to our library, go to the very top, click label, drag it out here. It's okay if it's not like perfectly there, we'll adjust it with constraints. Just drag it, put it in the general vicinity. Change the name to 0. Change the size to like, make it big. So let's put, I think 90 should be good. Yeah, 90 is nice. So just make sure it's not like overlapping here. So make sure just drag it up a little bit if you can. Then we want to set a constraint for this. Like, where does this belong, right? So this belongs kind of around here. So what we'll be doing is we'll set a, go to square. Oh, you guys just noticed that there's nothing shows up because nothing's selected, the view is selected. And the view's constraints are always set. So what we do is we have to correct this and click on the label, click on the square. Right now it's 20 away from the operator stack view. I think that's a little too much, so let's try 15. Well, no, let's try 10, sorry, just 10. And then add a new constraint. Okay, now it's like giving me an error for like, so I have its Y value set, but I don't have an X value set for it. So the way we're gonna set the X value is we're gonna align it with the end of the operator stack view. So let's go to the, so click on this. I think the best way to go about doing this one is click on this, hold command. So command allows you to select one element, not all. So shift, if I held shift, everything would be selected. I don't want that, right? I want to hold command, hold the operator stack view that holds, like clicks, that picks up the operator stack view alone, only that view, not all of it. Go to align. And I want to center it with the trailing edge. So trailing edge is like the ends. Leading will be the front. Top, bottom, pretty self-explanatory. So trailing will align the end of the 0 with the end of the UI, with the operator stack view. Let's add. Cool. Sweet. Another thing you want to do is once we start building it, you'll notice once we add numbers, they'll just go off screen because there's no constraints set here. So we want to click on the, make sure you click on the label itself, click on the square, and just set this to like 5, right? And this will push our thing all the way to the left. The way we fix that, click on the label, go to attributes, right align it. And now this is, I think this is the end. Yeah, this is the end of the UI section. So we'll take a 5-minute break to answer any questions right now. Okay. You can unmute yourself if necessary. Olay, do we have any questions in the chat?
I think I answered most of them, me and Yen. But is anyone still following along, or are people behind?
It's okay if you're behind. We'll be putting this on YouTube. I know it's a kind of a fast pace, especially if you've never done mobile apps before. And looking back, I think this was a little complicated for an example, but I think it's good to start with a app that you can like visualize and use every day. It has some functionality you can show to other people instead of like building an app like a color switcher app. That's just kind of lame in my opinion. And this is like a good place to start. Yeah, so we'll take like a 5-minute break. We'll start up at 8:25. If anyone has to like grab a drink of water.
Sujit, I have a quick question.
Yeah. What's up?
It's Ibrahim, by the way.
Oh, what's up, Ibrahim?
What's up, dude? So like on the iPhone, right? The buttons for like the numbers and stuff, like they're circular. So
yeah.
is there any way to like be able to change like the shape of the button?
Yeah. So that's a little of an advanced concept. So we're gonna do that at the end. Yeah, I want to cover that at the end because that uses something called inheritance. And it's a little bit of an advanced concept. But yeah, we'll cover it for sure. I want to make it look like the functionality might not meet Apple's like criteria, right? But I want to make sure that at least the look looks exactly the same.
Got you. Thanks.
Like if you want to be like super focused as well, I just noticed that like the color of the clear plus or minus the percent sign, it's black, not white. If you want to change it, you can. It's not a big deal. I think this is a good time to talk about the simulator. So you want to run your app increment. Like I know I wrote a lot of code this time. Like usually you're not supposed to like do this much UI or this much setup, but I've prepped this before. Like I know how this is gonna run. I know how it's supposed to look. So I did a lot of like UI changes before I ever ran it. But now this is a good time to introduce the simulator. So up here is like a toolbar. You have your like close button. You're like, I don't know what this like arrows do. Like I don't understand the purpose for that. But the plus sign, you have the plus sign. You have like this nice like thing that's telling you like ready, a triangle, so how many issues we have. Issues are all like some triangles are always bound. You're always bound to have some issues. Let's just see what the issues. Okay, that's fine. So we have like a bunch of, it's a toolbar, right? So if you click on the iPod Touch here, I think most of you have iPod Touch. They set it to like the least energy, the most conservative, like energy conservative option, which is the iPod Touch. That's a small simulator. So we can scroll up, and I can also plug in my phone and do some extra setup, and I can like run this on my phone, right? I don't want to do that now. It takes a bit of time. You have to log in using your Apple ID, and that's how you do it. There's a bunch of tutorials online, but you can choose any phone that you want. Today, I'll be using an iPhone 11 because I've been using an iPhone 11 to build it. But you can use any phone you want. You have Pro, you have Pro Max, you have SE. I would not use the iPads because we're not building for iPad, but it should work as well on iPad. And then when you press run, this will really fire up your laptop a little bit. Like it's running the simulator is pretty intensive. So that's why for Swift UI, you still have a simulator, but they have like a lot, like they have this dynamic iPhone on the side that keeps on updating. But for this, we just have the simulator.
If we build it specifically for the iPhone 11, could we use it on other generations too, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the point of the auto layout, is making sure that it works for all Apple devices. That's why we have to set up the constraints and stuff. Otherwise, we can just like paste things on and it'll run. But we want to just make sure it runs for everything.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is how it should look. Like we have the squares, but we'll deal with that later. We have an hour, so I think we have enough time. Yeah, so you can click on the buttons. Nothing should happen, obviously. And I don't know if you can hear my laptop, but it's like heating up a little bit. Yeah, you can just click on the buttons. It's fun, I guess. Yeah, so it looks pretty nice. I think it looks pretty similar to this. I know it's black, so don't do this. Like it's a bit of an advanced thing, I guess. But I think did they change that? Okay, so they used to have like a bar down here that like you could change like the interface, so that like you can toggle like light mode, dark mode, and the way you do that is I believe you can see it.
It's right there. You see where it says appearance?
Oh, is it on? It shouldn't be on the simulator itself. Oh yeah. So that's on the. So that appearance is a little different. So that's for the that's for the storyboard. If you want to change the live one, you go down here. You click on oops, why isn't that? Isn't showing up? I think, I don't know. Environment overrides. Oh yeah, okay. So, oh, you can turn these on, right? And then now if I pull up this, that looks pretty close. Like, I think that looks pretty close. Obviously, Apple is Apple. They probably over-engineered this, and they've probably spent like decades perfecting this. We're gonna do this in 2 hours, so pretty close. Right, so you're gonna swap from light mode to dark mode. Now it's back to light. Now let's get started. Now let's start, like, I know I promised 2 things. We're gonna do some stuff in Xcode, which we have. Now we're gonna write some Swift code. So I'm gonna stop my simulator. It just saves my battery life if I'm not plugged in. It just like lowers my like CPU usage in general. So just press the stop button. There's some fancy shortcuts to run and stop the program, but we're like, those are some like really nuanced things that you really don't need. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna write some Swift code. So, okay, so the way we do this is with this concept of, not concept, but like this feature called IBAction and IBOutlet. And you might be asking what's the difference between the two. I think the best way to show is through example. So what I want you guys to do is close this on the right. So close the inspectors panel, close the, don't close the project structure, don't keep that open. Keep this open as well, the hierarchy. You can close it and open it like that if you want. So what I want you to do is, you have these 2 options up here. So I want you to add a new editor on the right. So this is like adding a new tab. Okay, so now we kind of have 2 storyboards. It looks a little crazy. That's okay. So we have a storyboard here and a storyboard there. What we want to do now is you want to hold Option, Shift. Wait. Yeah, hold Option, Shift. And then click on View Controller.Swift on the right. Don't let go of Option, Shift. And then here, when it's highlighted on this left side, and we're holding Option, Shift, now my hand is like up here, the hand that's supposed to be on the mouse up in the air. You click, now I'm putting my hand on the mouse again, and then you click, and now this should load up, right? And the reason we had to do those like gymnastics really is there's no really easy way to have things show up on the left and the right. I could technically just go up and down and change the views. Like, I know now they added this new feature where like, I don't know why this is like a new feature. It should be like pretty common, but now you can have like different tabs on the top. You can switch back and forth. Boom, bang, bang, there. So now click here again. Click on the storyboard. Go down here if it's closed. Open your hierarchy. Okay. I think everything closed up. So if it's closed up for you, like it has for mine, hit the triangle, hit the other triangle, hit this triangle, open up the operator stack view. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be connecting the numbers to the code. So before we start doing that, I want to talk to you about the relationship between this file and our screen. So anytime, for every screen, there is always one view controller.swift file. They can be different names, but they have to extend, they have to have this at the top. They have to have like the colon UI view controller, right? I don't want to really talk about this in depth because it is pretty like, it's a very important concept, but it also takes a lot of time to understand well. But the way you can think about this, if you guys have coded in Java, public class file name, right? And this is your main method up here. That's like the easiest way to really describe it. And this is called a view controller class. There are different types of classes. I think the best way to describe it is like, if you want to customize something, you have to create a class and you have to customize it from that class, right? By just making a view controller, making a new screen and putting elements on it, we've told Apple that we want to customize it. So therefore we have to customize it. Suppose like later on, maybe like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, when the next workshop comes, we'll make 2 screens. Then there should be 2 view controller.swift files on the left, and there should be 2 screens on the right. For now, we only have 1 screen and 1 screen, right? Okay, so now we're gonna connect the buttons to the file. So the way we do that is we have to open up these buttons a little bit. Make sure all your stack views are open. You click on the 0 first. You can click on any button, any number button, but we're gonna do 0 first. You're gonna hold Control, and you're gonna drag it to underneath the view did load. So it has to be inside the class, inside these 2, but it has to be underneath the view did load, right? So now you let go of your mouse, and now it's going to give you this window where it prompts you to describe the connection and give a name for the IBAction. So IBAction is equivalent to a instance method in Java for a class, right? So instance methods, for just to remind you guys, those are methods that don't have static in them, right? And they're pertaining to the object itself, the instance. So we're going to call this num pressed, num button pressed, and press OK, press connect. And if you guys didn't get that right, we'll do it a couple more times throughout the session. So first let's connect all the buttons to that particular method, so we can connect all of them. So we can add the 1. Remember, it's hold Control, and then click on your button and drag from the project, the view hierarchy. Hold Control, click on this, hold Control, do that. Again, hold Control, click on this, 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 hold Control. It's a little tiring, but done. Okay, so now if you hover over this, all your buttons that are connected to that specific method should be highlighted, okay? And now what we want to do is today we won't be implementing all the buttons. We'll be implementing, I guess, these basic ones, plus, minus, times, divides. I'll leave like plus, slash, minus, percentage, and float for you guys. So what we're going to do is I'll show you another way we can connect buttons. Instead of going from the project structure, we can try connecting it from the view itself. So like we click on the screen, make sure it's highlighting the plus sign, and we can just hold Control and put the button in like that. And we can call this plus button pressed. Okay, and now I don't like doing it from the screen. I like doing it from the view hierarchy, so I'm just going to do it from there for the rest. Okay, so hopefully you guys figured out how to like connect the buttons. So I'll just do this really quick. Hold Control, drag, times button pressed, and then divides. Okay, so we have like a bunch of buttons. And then also equal button. So those are kind of like all the necessary buttons that we need for today's demo. You can add the other ones if you want and figure out the implementation. But these are the ones we'll be using for today. Okay, so now the next thing I forgot to do actually is we want to go back to, let me just think for a little bit. Okay, yeah. So for now, I don't think we need the split view anymore. So you can like close one of these tabs up here. Okay, and I forgot to do one thing. So open up your project, your view hierarchy by clicking on this button. Open up the attributes inspector, the inspectors panel. And for every number, we have to actually set a tag so we can identify like what number it was. Because for the plus, minus, times, division buttons, they have their own method. So when we click on one of those, the method inside the view controller will be triggered. But 0 through 9 have only one common button, or one common method. So when we click on one of these, it's going to be a little hard to differentiate. So what you want to do is you want to just go click on the button, go to the attributes inspector. So that's going to be 0, obviously. Attributes, click on 1, go to attributes inspector, change this to 1. Change this to 2. Change, don't double click, just click once. Change that to 3. So I'll be doing this for all of the buttons. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now I just want to verify that everything's been added properly. So if you guys may just got lost a little bit, click on your button, go to attributes, set the tag to the respective numbers. So for 8, it should be 8, 7, it should be 7, all the way up to 0 should be 0. I just remembered that I did forget to do one thing. So I talked about IBActions and how they were instance methods, but I forgot to talk about IBoutlets. So the way, let's go back to that previous setup that we had, which was click on the plus sign here, make a new tab, close this panel, give us some more space, click on the view controller. Okay, so like now, like I guess like now things go a little crazy when you just go a little too fast, I guess. So like when you start clicking on things will be changing like crazy. So what you want to do is hold Option Shift, click on the file that you want, put it in your desired location. So I want to put it on the right. And then view controller, hold Option Shift, and put it on the left. Okay. So I have the IBAction set up. And for some of you, like this extra panel might have showed up. Like you have your, like it looks a little crazy, right? So there should be, if you hover around here, it should, like the double arrow should show up, and you kind of just can drag it and close it. So that was like the previews panel, which you can search it up if you want to know about, you want to learn more about it, but I won't talk about it right now. It's not really that important. So what I want to do is set up an IBOutlet. So for these buttons, I kind of don't need IB outlets, because IB outlets are used for like getting the status of a UI element. So this number up here will be constantly changing. Like these buttons won't be changing really. We'll click them, the IBAction will be alerted, we'll follow through with some code, but the value of the tags, nothing's gonna be changed. But this 0, this label up here, when you click on it, should highlight up here, this will be changing throughout the entirety of the app. And to really have a reference on the value of the 0, what you want to do is you want to create a instance property, also known as a field. You've seen this in Java as well, like your fields at the top, and then your constructor, and then your instance methods. Some of you who are in CS111, I think that'll be covered towards the end of the semester. But it's basically, for those in CS111, you can kind of like maybe close your ears. It won't make that much sense. But for those who have got past CS111, it's just like another property, and it's a property for the view control, for the screen. So you want to hold control again, click on the, okay. So don't do what I just did. So what I did is I held control first, and then I clicked on the button. So click on the button, then hold control, and then drag. And then what we want to call this is the number label, right? Okay, so what I did before is I held control first, and then I clicked on it, and that gave me something weird. So what this is actually popping up is the option to remove a outlet. So I made that connection, but suppose like I don't like the name or something. I can change this to like, I want to change it to num label. Don't like, this is a really simple mistake that most people make. They will just change it here, and that will not actually change the connection. So if you hold control and click this again, it still says number label on view controller, but I've changed it to num label, right? You can't change it like that. So if you make a mistake or something, what you have to do is you have to break this connection like this. You held control and you broke it, or you can go to, you can open up the inspectors panel. And I know we didn't talk about the last one, but the last one is connections inspector, and you can destroy any connections you make at the connections inspector. So I could break it there, or I could hold control and just click on it and eliminate it there, right? And then the last thing you have to do is like clean up the mess you made and delete it. But I actually want to use a number label, so I'll just do it again. So click on here, hold control, and drag it and call it number. Okay, so now we're actually in a pretty good spot. So we have like 45 minutes left, and I think we have enough time to like write the code and really talk about inheritance as well. So you can now close this. I'm pretty sure now we don't have to do it again, but since you got that extra practice to like open up the tabs, if we do have to do it again, that's also available. Just to make sure, I guess, it's good to run your program again if you want to see that you haven't broken anything. All looks pretty good. Maybe let's test the button. Let's see, like, okay, nothing happens. A good way to test your buttons to see if you connected them is you can just go to one of the labels. So this is the num label, which if you guys don't remember, is connected to, I'll just do this to show you guys, you don't have to follow. So you can make another tab. So see, like the num label is connected to the numbers, plus is connected to the plus sign. They should highlight. Minus is connected to minus, times, divides, equals. Okay, so a good way to test things is to write a simple print statement. And what I'll do now here is just write a simple print statement. So you guys can get introduced to like Swift. So this is how a print statement looks like in Swift. You can just like test it out. So you can run it. I connected this to the num button pressed. So anytime I press a button now, it pops up this new dialog, this new panel. And this is the debugger / console panel. So anytime you want to debug something or you want to print something out, it'll be outputted here. So anytime I press a button now, that will show up. And now if I press something that hasn't been connected, nothing should happen, obviously. Okay, so that's a good way to check that things are working. Okay, now we're gonna write some small code to check that our buttons are working and we're able to change numbers. So we're gonna change the do I have the simulator still open? No, I closed it. But we're gonna change the number at the top to the number that was specified. So what we're gonna do is we wanna change this number label up here to the buttons tag. But when you guys might have noticed the sender, what is sender? And what is this like, this underscore, right? Underscore, we won't talk about it right now. Maybe we'll talk about it a little later. But sender is basically whoever is calling, what UI element is calling this method. So when we click on a button, the sender is going to be the button that was pressed. And since right now, the way Swift really outlines things is basically you have, instead of Java, like Java, for example, you have your type, right? And then you have your variable name. So variable name. In Swift, it's the other way around. It's like Spanish. It's variable name. Then you put a colon to specify the type. And before every variable, you also have to put something called, as you have to like set the variable as either a var or a let, right? So var is a variable that can be changed later on. Let is a variable that is constant throughout. So once you set it, you cannot change it. They have some nuances when you start looking into like the object-oriented design or how they interact with the entirety of like Xcode and iOS programming. There are some nuances to why people will use let versus var sometimes. Like it just makes sense sometimes to just use var every single time. But you understand why let is very important as well. So we can actually look up here. So like we have var number label. So var is the type of variable. Number label is the name of a variable, and UI label is the class or like the object class, so like string, whatever, right? And this up here is it's just a tag. It's stating that it's a it's like a special kind of like, it's just telling like the compiler or it's telling Xcode, hey, watch out for this. This is like not just normal Swift. Tag this, and we'll like run some code in the back every time we run into this. Okay, so like now that you see how this is like similar, what we're going to do is we're going to change the type of this because we're pretty confident that's a button. So we can change this to UI button. And I'll just do that again because in case I went pretty fast. You can go press U and it'll start auto-completing. That's the benefit of coding in an IDE versus a text editor. IDEs often complete things for you, and they have like they're integrated with the language and the development of the product, and they know it. They can kind of interpret what you're trying to do. So you can press UI, button. That's what we want. And the reason I'm doing this is because this allows us the ability to use the tag. So before, like you had sender. So if we had, oh, sorry, not sender. If we had any. So this is any type. And then if we're trying to reference tag, you'll notice that nothing comes up except for self. But when we have UI button, we can reference that tag variable that we set. So now we can do tag. The reason is any type, every type in Swift doesn't have a tag. Only specific UI elements have tags. And UI button is one of those elements that have a tag. So we can do tag. So what are we gonna do with this tag? Do we want to print it out? Yeah, let's print it out first. Okay, let's try and print it out before we try to set. Let's go step by step. Are there any issues with the code? No, there isn't. So let's see what happens. We'll run it and we'll press some buttons. 4, 5, 6, 9, 8. Okay, cool. It's updating, right? So now you can close your program if you have it open. And now let's try to set it to the number label. So every label in Swift has a text property. So like, maybe like, let's maybe dive a little deeper and like, maybe like look at what I'm referencing. So what you can do in Swift is you can hold Option and you can like kind of like highlight these keywords. And when you highlight these keywords, it offers you the option to learn a little bit more. So I guess like here, oh wait, you don't want to click on number label, sorry. You want to click on UI label here. And it tells you like a bunch of like information. So you can configure the overall like, appearance of the label's text and use the attributed strings to customize the appearance of substrings within the text. So what that is saying, that line is saying, it's not really relevant to what we're doing, but do you guys like go on Facebook? I don't know if people use Facebook nowadays, but like on Facebook, when you have like strings and stuff, like, you know the strings that you can tap on Facebook are bolded, and the strings that are not tappable, they're not bolded. So this is basically saying like you can with this UI label, you can like change the, you don't have to like make it a universal like font or universal like boldface. Like you can change it to like customize the look of your label. We can also open up the developer documentation if we're unsure what something does. And this should open up a new window. Oh my God. So what just happened is I think Xcode kind of like overloaded just now. So sometimes it crashes, that's okay. Hopefully we have a working copy of her. It should autosave. Okay, yeah, so it just opens up. Sometimes it'll happen, sometimes it's a pretty big, intensive thing to build apps. So sometimes it does overload. It's just like any app can crash sometimes. Oh wow, it's okay. That's just a bug, I guess. So I think Apple is still like, they just put this out a couple days ago. So I think they have a couple issues that they're trying to resolve. Nothing on our end. I guess it just takes time to like build good software, right? And that's okay. It's like, now I guess that's a good lesson for all of us. Like Apple makes mistakes, so it's okay if we make mistakes as well, right? Like that should open. So usually what that feature allows you to do is read the documentation. You'll open another tab in Xcode and it will allow you to read that documentation. But I think Xcode 12 just came out, so it has some bugs. I don't know. I think it was supposed to even come out with Big Sur, but they released it a couple days early. I don't know why. Okay, so now I want to do is I want to start writing some code, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to our number label and change the text. So we're going to do number label. So it should like kind of like fill in for you with that. And then when you press period, you should get like a bunch of options. For the thing we're interested in right now is text. So you don't have to drag it. You don't have to like go through the window and like pick exactly what what like attribute that you want a UI label. You can just type in text and it'll. And then if you notice, you press Option on text, it's going to be asking for a string question mark. Like what we've seen a string before, that's in like most languages. But what's a question mark after a string? So what that is this new type that only exists in Swift. It's called optional. And optional is available in all languages, but they integrate it into the type as well. So in Swift, any UI, any object in Swift, I know for kids in CS 111, you might be a little like lost right now, but it might make sense like later on. But for objects in Swift, they can't hold the value null. So like, you know, in Java, we got the null pointer exception, and like in Swift, you can't get a null pointer exception. And when you get a null pointer exception in Swift, your app crashes and it's game over. Like you have to like restart your app. Like the user is really mad, and like that's unacceptable in Swift. So that's why they have this optional type that basically anytime you have a question mark after the actual type, you're specifying it's of type optional, and optionals can either have the value nil, which is the equivalent of null in Java, or they can have an actual value. And we'll be exploring that throughout this workshop, but since it just came up, I just want to mention it. So what we want to do is we want to set the text number label.text to sender.tag. Okay. We can comment this out for now. Okay, so now it's giving us an issue. So like always, our type on the left has to match our type on the right. And usually in Java, what we would do is we would do like plus, just do that. That should like resolve our issue, but that doesn't work in Swift. What we have to do is we have to do this thing called string interpolation. It's basically, if you guys have used C, it's like embedding your variable inside a string. And the way you do that is you declare a string with a quotation mark, you use a backslash, and then you wrap your variable inside parentheses. And this is called string interpolation. Okay, so now the next thing we do is we should be able to run our program, run our app. There's a lot of details that makes app development really interesting, but also it's kind of hard to explain sometimes. So now your app should change numbers. Okay, so the next step is kind of concatenating numbers, right? Okay, I've coded before. I know how to concatenate things. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to put a variable. I'll make a new variable called var. And I'm using var because I'm going to be changing this variable. So I'll call this, let's call this numstring, right? This is like the current value. It's supposed to represent the current value of the string. That is, that's like, it's supposed to be our result. Whatever is up here, it's supposed to represent that. So I have numstring. We'll declare of type, let's declare of type string. Okay, initially it's like, it's empty. Okay, cool. And then, okay, so this giving me a small error. That's okay. It's just saying numstring was never used. It's just saying like, why are you wasting space? Like that's like the only reason like it's giving me that error. But that's okay. Yellow errors you don't really have to care about. So now you can do numstring and then plus. Okay, that should fix it. Like that seems like how concatenation should work. So let's try that. So let's see if that works. So 5, okay, 6, okay, no. So it's not changing. So that's a little bit of an issue. And the reason is if you guys have noticed that every time we're we're like clicking on this button, this is not persisting. Those of you who are familiar with programming, you'll realize that variables like this shouldn't be in a method, right? If you want something to persist over time throughout a session of like an object, you gotta declare it at the top as a global variable. And that's what we'll be doing. So, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it like this. But for some reason, it doesn't make sense to like just give it an empty value. I just feel like in Java, we never give values up here, right? If we declare variables at the top, we just have like, I don't know, string, like we have like private string x, right? That's how we declare things, and then we have the semicolon. But in Swift, that doesn't make sense. So, and basically what's happening, actually, let me go back a little bit. So what happens here in Java, it's you're basically setting it to null. So we kind of want to do the same thing, right? Just because it's a different language doesn't mean we have to do things differently. So what we're going to do is just put a question mark, and that will automatically set it equal to null. But what if we didn't put that question mark? You have this error up here that's saying class view controller has no initializers. So basically what that's saying is if you're creating an instance of a view controller, which is created every time your app loads up, nothing should be nil from the start. You either have to make it an optional or you have to give it a value. So we could have had quotation marks that would silence that error, but that's not how things are done usually. So I wanted to make it nil. So by putting the question mark, I'm basically setting it to nil. So now that throws another error down here. So value of optional type string must be unwrapped. So basically, there's like this like contract, right? You can't use an optional unless you unwrap it. You have to make sure it's not equal to null. And there are two ways to do this. You can force unwrap something. What that does is basically, what force unwrapping does, it'll just basically like use the variable without checking if it's null. Like you have so much confidence as a programmer, you know that value is not going to equal null. That's when you use force unwrap. Otherwise, you always want to check. And the way we check is just how we would check in Java if something is nil or null. So if numString is equal to nil, we want to run that. We want to concatenate. But we don't want to concatenate. So if it's equal to nil, we don't want to concatenate. Else we do want to concatenate, right? So this is concatenating. That's what we're doing, concatenating. And number label.text is what happens when we're just when like this is like, okay, maybe I'll type it out next. So these are two different situations. So this is when we're concatenating, and this is when we're using a variable for the, like we're instantiating. This is when we're at 0, right? So that's the difference. So this is like you're adding on to the number, like you're concatenating, versus initially setting the value from 0. So now we're sure that we've checked if it's not nil. So like if it's nil, do this. If it's not nil, do this. Now we can use that exclamation point and unwrap it. And you might notice that up here, Apple used the exclamation point. That's totally fine. So now if we run our program, so run it again. Every time, like if you have a simulator running, it'll like give you a prompt, which will tell you to ask you if you want to stop your current simulation. You do, usually, if you're kind of running again. So now, okay, now it's not concatenating, so there's a little bit of an issue. So let's see why that issue is occurring. So what we have here is number label.text is equal to sender.tag if it's equal to nil. And then numString is equal to the sender, that tag. Notice that we're never setting num string. So like we set it up here, but we never set it. So the way we want to do this, I think the best way to do this is to basically change this num string. So anytime you're changing it here, you want to change num string. And anytime you're changing it here, you want to change, instead of the text, you're changing num string. And then down here, we'll use number label dot text, and we'll set it equal to num string. And we can use the exclamation point. It might give us an error. Should it give us an error? Okay. If we press build, it'll give, I'm pretty sure it'll give us an error. Okay, it's not. Huh, why is it not? Okay, the reason it's not giving us an error is because this is of type optional string, and this is also of type optional string. So like you can set an optional to an optional, you won't have an error. But if you're trying to set a literal string to an optional string, we'll have an error. Okay, so now if we run it, things should start concatenating, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now we have the dot, dot, dot. I might fix that later on. Like there's so many things you always have to be fixing as an app developer, so many different situations that you have to cover for. But since we're running a little short on time, I just want to get to maybe like being able to add multiple digits at once. So let's try and do that. Okay, so let's see. Numbers. Okay, so I'm actually gonna take like a 5-minute break, I guess, and we'll really look at adding numbers and really fixing the logic of our app afterwards. So I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Belay, do you want to like cover for me while I'm gone? Yeah, you can just answer any questions that are there. I know like we are going at a little bit of a fast pace, but it's just like, as we'll be posting this on YouTube. So if you guys miss anything, it should be there. Okay, I'll be back pretty soon.
Yeah, I think the important thing right now is to understand the concepts, because you'll always be able to, watch this video, play it back, pause it, rewind. But if anyone has any questions, just drop them in the chat or unmute yourself. No questions? You guys understood what an optional was and all that? How many of you guys are taking 111 right now? 112?
All right, I'm back. So Yeah, I just had to review some notes. Okay, so all right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try and like get the calculator function to start working. We'll be looking at the addition um, function first, and then we'll slowly expand to minus, times, divides. Okay. Anyone have any like comments, any outlying things that they want to say before we get started? So this last session, I might have to go like 10 minutes over. Like we should be finishing the calculator by 9:30, but to go over like the extra features on like how to like stylize uh, our UI to get the corner radius running will take a little bit more time. So that'll be covered in the last 10 minutes. And then like a small outro for 5 minutes. But yeah, hopefully like it's okay. Like once again, we'll be uploading this to YouTube. It's really up to date on like a lot of the tutorials on YouTube. It's kind of long. I know I do explain things pretty in depth sometimes, but it's good to have the understanding. It really like um, makes like allows you to understand what's going on, what's going wrong sometimes, and you can like really fix yourself on the spot. When you can expect an error, you're in a very good situation, right? Because in programming, like errors are endless, so being able to expect an error puts you in a very powerful position. Okay, so now the next thing we want, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Just gotta make sure because we're uploading this to YouTube. So hopefully the audio, I have no idea if the audio is being tracked, but we'll see. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to like, I guess like the best way to show is through example. So I want to press a couple buttons and then I want to press plus. Okay, when I press plus, I want this to disappear. I want this to go back to 0. And let's see. Or I don't want it to go to 0. I guess I want to press plus and then I want to put some more numbers in, like 4, 5, and then I want to add them. So that's what we're going for. So, okay, so the first thing I want to focus on is we have the number showing up, but nothing's happening when we press plus. And what we want to happen when we press plus is we want to save this number up here. So let's like save the number up there. And we want to like set this back to 0, kind of like clear our any history that we have. And then we want to, when we press equals, we want to add it. So let's focus on the plus first and clearing things out. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is look at the plus button. Here, I don't really care about the UI button because I'm not going to be using the tag. But if you wanted to use a specific button tag property, you would want to cast this to UI button. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, I guess you want to check if the num string is null, right? So I guess the way I want to do this is maybe let's have a current value and then we'll have another value underneath that saves the value. So let's call this var first num, right? Let's call it first num. And let's make the same type. So this will just save the value of num string. So num string is like our current value. It will, anytime we press the plus sign, that's just an indication, let's save this and let's get ready to show the user some new numbers. So now what we're gonna do is we wanna set first num equal to num string, okay? And then we wanna kind of, that's kind of all we have to do really. And then all we have to do that now is we wanna reset num string. And I think after we do that, it should be pretty good. Let's see, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. I don't want to refer to my notes right now because I feel like getting like the idea of like the thought process helps. So you have 5, 6 plus, okay, let's add 4, 5 now. 4, okay, 5. Good. So now that works pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is when I press equals, I kind of want to add these numbers together. And now you'll see that we're kind of in a tricky situation because we have strings, we don't have integers or doubles. So what we want to do, so I'll add some comments so if you guys, we'll be posting the code to GitHub as well, so you can refer to that. Saving the first number and resetting the result. So okay. So now what we want to do is we want to add these numbers together. So there we have strings. We want cast to doubles, right? The way we're going to do that is the first thing we want to do is we want to check if num string or first num is nil, right? Initially they start as nil. So the user has the option to press equals here, right? And we kind of want to, like, if either if the numbers are nil or they have not been set yet, we kind of want to like not do anything. And that's what's beautiful about Swift. It allows you to write the if equals null return very cleanly. So the way you do that is you write guard let num1 string equal to string, well, let's, sorry, it's equal to first num, else, or maybe let's wait for the error to show up. It gives us some context. So expected else after guard. So guard is just a fancy way to write if equals, like, so basically what it's doing, it's not only checking if it's equal to null, so it's not only doing like the classic if variable equals null, return. Like that's a classic in Java, like once you start programming. Like not only does it do that, it allows you to set a new variable, and that's the power of let. For let variables, let can only have literal values. It can never hold an optional. Why? Because if you're trying to set a let variable to an optional, that's kind of useless. Why? Because you can never set it out of an optional. So if you set something to nil, a let variable to nil, you can never use that variable. And like I said, anytime you try to use a variable that's nil in Swift, the app breaks. And now we just have to do else return. So like if you successfully are able to declare this variable, go ahead. If you can't successfully declare that variable, so if first num is if it's nil, just go out, just like return out. And we want to do this for our second number as well. Guard let num2 string is equal to num string, right? So that's the current value that's inside. So basically, we're not casting to doubles here. We're just checking if first num, checking if we have two numbers. If we have two numbers as strings that we can compute. Okay. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is cast them to doubles. We can use the same way. So anytime you get, if you have a cast that's unsuccessful, it returns you nil. So we can call this, I had some good names on my notes, so I'm gonna use that. Okay, they're not good names. They're just num1 is equal to, you want to use double, which is a constructor. It's like constructors are pretty like popular in object-oriented programming. And then you want to do num1 string, else return. Guard let num2 is equal to same thing. You'll see like a lot of the code I'll be writing is very like, wait, did I say num? I mean, it should be num1 string, sorry. And this should be num2. So we're referring to the ones we just like made, not the original. Like, okay, and we can also call like, be a bit more fancy and explicitly say a type. This is odd. Initially, it's like kind of interpreted. So doing that won't make a difference, but it's just clear for the reader. Yes. And then casting to doubles. Okay, so now we have 2 doubles. And now what we can do is we can just add these numbers. So we can have let, or like we have a var total of type double for now. And we can let that be num1 plus num2. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to change the text. So we want to change the text to num label dot text, which is our like result, to total. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think the better way to go about doing it is just like using the string interpolation that we used before. So now we can run this. Hopefully it works. It should not give us any 0.7 seconds. 5, 6 plus 4, 5. Okay, 101. That's pretty sweet. Okay, so we kind of have addition working. So now, if you guys are okay with this, like it's working a little bit, but now we're gonna get super, super fancy with stuff. So I don't know if you guys are ready, but this is like pretty fancy stuff. We'll be introducing this concept called enum. So enum is basically, it's a variable type like var and let, but it's very popular like in industry. You see this a lot, and the reason people use enum is because they have, the reason for enum is it allows you to like explicitly state like different states. It goes very hand in hand with switch statements that we'll be using right now. So for every enum, you have to establish some cases. So we have none, plus, minus, times, divides. Those are our operators. We also have enum of states. Okay, so before I talk about some states, I want to just introduce you like where is this whole, like why am I introducing enum, and why am I introducing like these states? So let me find, I had a really good screenshot that, 1 second. Okay. So this is not my work. Just want to let that know. This is the data structures professor. This is his one of his slides. But this is the way he talks about going to a calculator is like this. So like you have to understand the user can do anything he wants, but not really, right? So when you're on a like, so initially clear is like fresh. You just open the app. Then you can press a digit and you go into a different state, which is like you've clicked a number. And then you can click an operator, so you're in the operator state. And then you press equals and you're in an equals state. So basically clicking different buttons, so different actions, so the arrows are actions by the user, will put you in a different state. And this is a very clean way, it's called a design pattern. It's a very clean way to outline how our app will work. And this is used by like every single company with any product that they use. They'll have this is called an FSA, a finite state automata. And this outlines all the possible combinations that the user can use. like, yeah. So it's very easy once you draw this to like really transfer this and translate it into code. That's what we'll be doing. Okay. I don't know if you guys noticed the different states, but we had clear, we had digit 1, float, which one we won't be seeing. We'll have op, which is operator, equals, and we'll have digit 2, right? So now I kind of want to basically have 2 variables in the very beginning down here that tell us what state that we're in. So I'm going to have a variable called op, and that is of type operator. And then I can set the value by doing this, operators dot see, now it's very easy. It's not like a string. I just type something out. I can just go using my arrow key and like pick one, right? It like basically sets like a like set of states that you can use. And then you also have var state, which is your initial state, states, and this can be, and something that's fancy is like, since you already specified that's a state, what you can do is just do period and click on clear, right? You don't even have to have this operator because you're already saying state on an operator. Okay, so now we're gonna revisit our num tapped, num button pressed method. And we're gonna clean it up so it kind of like goes to our like matches our state diagram. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check if we're in state equals dot clear. So like when we're doing a Boolean now, we can just press period and it knows. It's smart enough to tell that, okay, these are the possible values. So we're in dot clear, right? And we're gonna change it to dot state of, it's okay if you don't understand this, it's a little complicated, but if you look at it in your own time, it will make much more sense. So digit 1. So now once we're in clear and we press our first number, we're going to digit 1, right? And then now the next thing we want to do is we have this. I think this is pretty good. So just as a reminder, this is like setting the initial value. This is appending to an existing value. And then, yeah, and that's, I think, all we need for, that's actually technically all we need for that first method. We can delete this stuff or some excess stuff. Okay, so let me just make sure. Okay, the next thing we want to do is figure out this plus button. So what we do here is we first num is equal to num string equals to nil. So basically what we want to do is we want to, if we ever, if first num is nil, we want to instantiate that. Otherwise, we want to, I actually don't think it's really necessary, but I had it in my notes, so I just want to write it out with you guys. So I had first num is equal to nil. Then if that's the case, just set it then. Yeah, the reason this is the case is like if the user is repeatedly pressing plus, you don't want to like keep on resetting the first num, right? Only reset it if it's nil, right? So like if you haven't set a value already. And what I'm actually going to do, since like we'll be using this code every single time, I'm going to make a new method called, so this is something new. I know we're over time, so if you have to go, that's okay. But I'll be completing the rest right now. It might take me like 10, 15 more minutes, and we'll wrap up. The rest will be on YouTube. But yeah, I'll just like continue now because there's some more important parts I want to go over. Okay, so I want to make a new method, and the way you make a method in Swift is you have to say func, and that's basically just saying like this is a function, and another word for a function is a method, like you've seen in Java. And when you do func, you want to type out, instead in Java, it's you type out the return type. What you're doing after now is you want to just give the name. So you're just going to check if it's first num, no. Is first num no, right? And we're just going to copy this code and put it down here. And the reason I said this is we're going to be using that same like way of doing things in all the different methods. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is anytime you, so that's the first thing we always did. So we want to just replace that by calling this first num nil. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to set the op to plus here. And the last thing you want to do is set the state equal to op. So basically, these two are different. I should have used maybe different names, but this is the state operator. So let's see, what do I do? Okay, so here you have, you're basically going from op to operator state. That's what state equals op is doing. And then op equals plus is basically changing like what is telling us what operator has been pressed. So let's maybe like leave a comment. What operator has been pressed? And this is what state we are going into. This is the same thing for the rest, really. So you can copy off this, paste it there. Kind of delete the comments here because we already stated it once. Okay, sorry. And now take this, put it down here, down there. One thing we have to do is make sure the plus changes to a minus. So we can just do period times period divides. Okay, so that's basically it for that code. And now all we're doing now is we'll have to just do a small switch statement to really interpret what type of operation we're doing. So right now we're just doing num1 plus num2, but we'll be, we have different operators, so different operators that we've pressed, and we'll be using a switch statement to interpret which one we press. So we can have switch, and then after switch, you put your condition. In this case, or like you don't put your condition, but you want to like put your value, which is op, and then you have like as many conditions as you need. So every condition, you will have a dot, like you'll just like state the condition. So this is basically saying, is our op variable equal to a dot plus that is in the enumeration, right? And we're going to kind of do that for all of them. So it's saying the switch must be exhaustive. So what we have to do is we have to provide all of the cases. So what we can do is, so after the switch, every case, we have to have a colon. And then we'll write total. So you might have some errors right now, just like keep calm and we'll like, fix them all in time. So num1 plus num2. So we're adding two numbers, right? And then we have case dot minus. That's total is equal to num1 minus num2, right? And we have case dot times, which is total num1 times num2. Then we have case dot divides, should be total is equal to num1 over num2. So now it should be exhaustive. In other languages, you'll see like well, let me just make sure everything works. Yeah, just make sure it's all num1s. So it's still saying it should be exhaustive. I think it just doesn't realize that like I've exhausted all the options. So instead of having divides here, you can just have default, which is like if none of the previous conditions are met, just use default. And that will fix that error from this. So it just needs to interpret that it's you've covered all the cases. In most languages, you'll have a break after the case. In Swift, there's no implicit fall through. What that means is like if this condition is met, it will just end here. Otherwise, the following code will not run. So usually you have a break. So the reason for the break is if this runs, it'll just keep on going until like condition is not met. But in Swift, it stops as soon as a case is met. Okay, so just to make it look a bit nicer, just indent it. You can highlight and press tab and indent everything. Okay, so now the thing we want to do here is we want to change this value double, and we want to make sure it's let me look at my notes. We want to just make sure we're not like changing, like just set it equal to 0. So this will set total equal to 0 initially, and then we'll set a value for double. Okay, and now after you do that, what you want to do is so you have to like keep in mind that like when we divide a number, we're opening up the possibility of having a double, with an actual double with a value. And if it's just like a number, an integer, we want to have an integer. And the way we can like really fix this situation is we can basically write a new method down here, and we can call it, I'll just call it truncate total. And basically I'm just gonna put num, so I'm putting a parameter in, and I want to return like the final value that it should be. So like I compute the value, now I want to like compute a string that I can set as the result text. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do if, so if, wait, sorry. Okay, yeah. So basically you want if let s is equal to, let's just try this, exactly double. Okay, so what this is doing is creating a string by constructing an int. You're using a constructor. And in Swift, this is how you return things. Instead of providing the return type there, just provide over here. So what we'll be doing is we'll be using num string, set that equal to nil. Oh wait, sorry. Why? I didn't mean to touch that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to return the value that we've gotten. So we'll just return it as, so we cast it as an int. So now suppose we're like sending in like 101.0. We've converted by writing this let s int. We converted it to 101. And the way we send it as a string, same interpolation. So we're just sending the variable s back. But what if there was some like value up here that we didn't want to truncate? So if we try to run like construct a int using a value like this, it won't just truncate it. It will just like return nil because that's not possible. So in that case, we just want to return the value that we were given. This would be, so like for a value like 101.56, boom, return that value like 101. Done. So I want to call this value as soon as I finish this finish computing it. Truncate total, provide my value, which is total. And where am I gonna save this? I want to save this in first num, and the reason is sometimes you want to chain things. You want to do 5 plus 5 equals, and then you want to add 5 again. You want to save this in first num, which has been our place to save things, save a text. And then instead of like setting this to total now, we will set this to first num. And then we will reset things. So we'll set num string to nil. That's basically a resetting it. And then we'll be changing the state equal to dot equals to make sure, let them know that we are in the dot equals phase. Okay, so now with that, all of that, I don't believe that we have anything left. Let's see, like the tester app, see if it works. Okay, 996 plus 5. Okay, that's right. Minus, let's try 14. Sweet, it works. And then let's maybe like multiply it by like 2. Okay, sweet. So our app works now. Now, one thing we've never covered is like, I want to run more calculations. Actually, I forgot to do this, but it's pretty simple. If you don't want to follow along, that's okay. But like, same thing like before. It's good practice. Open up a new tab. Sometimes you forget to add elements, and that's okay. Hold Option Shift. Open up your storyboard, and then you want to go to your clear sign, which is at the divide stack view. And then just make another IBAction. We haven't seen that in a while, so it's good practice. So we will just call it clear button tapped. Okay, and then now when you do this, what you want to do is you want to just like reset the value. So num string equal to nil. First num, like set everything to nil. Set the state equal to dot clear. And then set the value back to the number label. Set it equal to 0. Okay, and that kind of wraps up the functionality, right? Oh, oops. State. Not bad. It's state here. Okay, so, and then here I'm getting an issue because I have to do number label. So the values have to match on both sides. If you hold Option, you'll see this is maybe if I complete this actually. Right, and then you hold Option, it'll tell you it's a UI label, and this was like a number, a string. They have to match. They have to match on both sides. Now it will work. Your program, your calculator is complete, and you can show it off to recruiters, and you can show it off to like your friends. So you can do 65 plus 6, done, times 2. Done. Now press clear. Oh, clear is not working. Let's see. See what the issue was. Oh, do you know what happened? I connected the divide sign, not the clear button. So what I want to do here is hold Control, click on that. So you have 2 here. So you have divides and you have clear. Close the clear. Another way you could have done it is you could have opened the inspectors panel, go to the connections inspector, and remove it there. Okay, so I'm going to connect the right button this time. Hold Control, drag, boom, done. And it'll work. Let's just try, test it. It's always good to test. 56, clear. Sweet. So now I know a lot of you have been waiting for the corner radius. And now we'll be exploring that. So now we can close the logic of our app. which is the view controller, and let's focus back on the buttons. So the way we can create corner radius is in two ways. We can either click on one of these buttons up here, and then we can go to the identity inspector, and we can add a value. So we can add a value corner radius. We can change that Boolean to a number. And I think a good value to test is, I've tested this before, just use 38. So just use 38 for now. And now if you run your app, the 0 should be round. Okay, maybe 38 is not a good value. It has to be a bit more. Let's try 40 next time. But that's a way you can change the corner radius. But it's really annoying. Like suppose we have to, our boss comes to us and tells us like, I don't like 38. I want it to be more round. Then we have to go to all of these buttons, and that's like painful. So to delete it, just press the minus sign here, click on it, click on the minus sign. Now we're going to be testing some real technical knowledge. So what you want to do is you want to right click on the calculator workshop project. You want to go to new file. Now you have a bunch of files that you can create, C++, C, I have no idea what IIG is. Header is like something part of C. Cocoa Touch, which is a Swift file, and then you have a Swift file. So what you want to do here is create a Cocoa Touch. Sometimes it might not be clear whether to use a Swift file or a Cocoa Touch file, but think about it. If you want to do something with the UI kit or a UI button or something that you're going to end up touching on your phone, that will be a Cocoa Touch. If it's something purely used for logic or storing data, that will be a Swift file. So click Cocoa Touch. The subclass that we want is UI button. You can like click and find it here. For now, we'll call it UI button. And we'll call it round button. And it'll ask us where do you want to save it. For now, just use autopilot and just like think that it knows what it's doing and just press create. Usually it's always right. Okay, now you drag this up. So now we're basically using this policy or this concept called inheritance. This is in Java as well, but it looks a little different. So the way in Java it'll be like public class. It's called RoundButton in this case. Extends UI button. So UI button is a class in itself. So this is a class implemented by the people at Apple. RoundButton is something that we'll be implementing ourselves. So I could rewrite everything myself and like add that functionality, but why would I go through the stress of doing that when I can just copy whatever Apple is doing? So this is a benefit of inheritance. It's one of the benefits of inheritance. There are so many more that you will learn in a class called software methodology. But for now, we want to exploit one benefit of inheritance, which is called code reuse. This allows us to reuse the code that they already wrote in the UI button by simply overriding one method called draw. And if we override that method, so we write override, look for draw, it should be the first one with CG rect. So CG rect stands for, I forgot what CG stands for, but it's like rectangle. It's like a floating point rectangle. So what you're gonna do now is basically call on self. So you're gonna call in the object itself, click layer, corner radius, set it to 40. Next, go to self.layer, and there should be mask to balance. If you guys have used Photoshop, you guys know what a mask is. A mask is basically cutting out a portion of an image. So it's like cutting out exactly what you want. So we set the balance to 40, a corner radius of 40. By setting mask to balance to true, we are just setting it to that mask. Okay, now you have to apply this round button. Okay. So now you go back to your storyboard, and you go to the identity inspector. Remember, the identity inspector is where our object tells us what class it is from. And we change this to RoundButton. So you can write your own custom classes and change them yourself, and you would have like a view. You would have a file in your project, and then to change it, you would have to just apply RoundButton. Yeah, it's kind of like a process, I guess. But now if we want to ever change the corner radius, it's just 2 clicks instead of like changing the key path, whatever that was. Okay. As I do this, I think this is pretty much the end of the workshop. There's like one last thing if you guys want to stick around for. There are a lot of buttons. See, like if we had to change the value, it would be a lot more painful. Actually, I think there's an easier way to do this. Like, I don't know why I'm doing it like this. So another way you can do this is you can hold one of these buttons, hold Shift, grab them all, change them all to UI. Same thing here. Just make sure they're all UI buttons. The round button, sorry. That we made. Okay. Okay, good. So now if you load up your app, it should look something like this, which is kind of similar to what Apple has. Right, pretty close. They probably over-engineered it, probably like found the perfect round radius, what Apple does, but for 2 hours, I think this is pretty good. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't want to I didn't do this in the beginning because it is a little bit more complicated, but you want to like have the 0 extend out. And the way we're going to do that is first, we're going to delete the dash button. Then we're going to do the equals stack view. Hold on to this. Press Command and click on the plus stack view. Do equal heights. Okay. So now there's like a couple errors, but that's okay. So the red lines are not never good. So what you want to do now is you want to go to equal stack view, and you want to change this. We previously set this to fill equally. We're going to do this to fill now. Okay, so now it looks a little weird. That's okay. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to go back to our size inspector. We want to change, give this a aspect ratio of 1:1, so it looks like a square. Okay. So it automatically sets to 48:17, but we can change it to 1:1. Same with this one, give it an aspect ratio. 1:1. Okay, okay, no problem. So now here you want to remove the aspect ratio so it like really expands itself. Okay, and you also want to remove the width because I've clicked on the 0 at this point. You want to remove the width because we want it longer. And now we have our perfect calculator. The functionality does need some work, I'm not going to lie. It's hard to code something that evaluates all like expressions by itself. It definitely does need some work, but for the most part, this is a really solid project that you can show off to your friends and your family. And really, it was a good dive and see what it's like to build a solid app. Another thing you could also do is like change the alignment here. Left align it, and then go to insets on here and just like increase its, I know the value is like 35. So now that's basically how it looks like. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the workshop. I know I went a lot over, 28 minutes over, but I really hope that you found this very useful. I know it was a lot of information, and that wasn't really the point of this workshop isn't really to teach you guys all of iOS development. It's hard to do that in 2 hours, but the point is just to give you a nice primer into what it's like to build an app start to finish. If you guys do want to learn more about building apps, like learning Swift from the ground up, learning all the types, learn it at a very detailed level, I would highly recommend joining the Accelerator program, which the application's open for that this December. And I'm really happy that we have a lot of people still here. And I know there's going to be a ton of people watching this on YouTube over again, and that's okay. It's good to just really like expose yourself and like spend time with app development. It's really fun. It's here to stay. Apple is putting a lot of effort into upgrading the ways that we build apps, so it's definitely here to stay. And Apple is a company that's going to be here for a really long time. Some last tidbits is if you liked what you saw here, I learned most of my stuff from RUMAD, and I also learned a lot from YouTube. And I would recommend some YouTube channels if you guys are interested to learn more. That really start you from the ground up, even a bit before like what we're doing here. I recommend Code with Chris. He's really good. He has like, it's really structured, and like he has courses that are aimed for beginners. I'd also recommend Sean Allen. He is, I think I can like pull up their channels. Sean Allen, Code with Chris. I would really recommend their YouTube channels. I guess like, let's find what they look like. So you guys know.
Hey YouTubers, welcome to my channel, Code with.
Yeah, so this is.
Hello and welcome to How to Make.
This is his YouTube channel, and then under subscriptions, I should have like, oops, does not do that.
Hello and welcome to How to.
And then it should be like Sean Allen, iOS. He's also really good. Pretty cool beard, to be honest. He has so much information on Swift if you want to learn about Swift. He has like really gives you the details that you want to learn about. If you want to learn about like those tags that we talked about, classes. I think he has some stuff on Swift UI, and every week he posts something on like Swift. And then Mayuko. Mayuko gives you like the lifestyle of what it's like to be like a coder, live like a coder. She has like personal projects. She has like talks about like real issues that software developers go through. And I really recommend just like watching her videos as well. Those are some YouTube videos I would get started with. And then if you guys wanted to like expand your app, like even code up the landscape version, I recommend calling these are functions here that you can just use instead of like implementing it yourself. Just call those, make a button, make an IBAction, boom, and compute the value. This Swift docs to get started and learn the basics of the Swift programming language. They have About Swift, I believe, and you can go to, maybe it's somewhere around here, source code perhaps. I don't know. It's somewhere around here, getting started. Nope. Okay, so it's somewhere around here, like it gives you like the syntax structure, how it's used. But that's pretty much it. Thank you all for coming. I'm gonna stop recording now.